Hey all, Grolo here. Hope everyone's been managing and navigating the holiday season well. I sure have been, and I'm getting pretty excited. Today I wanted to get into the AMA finally and answer the questions that a bunch of awesome folks took the time to go post in the community post on YouTube here that I've been linking in the past couple videos. I've been really looking forward to this, so let's do it. Before we get to the questions, though, I have a quick plug. As you know, I lead the Star Citizen chapter within Unhinged Gaming. Our Star Citizen organization is called Luminous. But another great guy leads the Ashes of Creation chapter. His name is Nash. He's over at Unhinged Gaming, and he just recently kicked off his YouTube channel with some videos that will help you get a jump start on the game come December 20th, which is when they're going to be doing a full wipe and dropping a bunch more features and content. So it's a great time to get in. Good time to go check out those videos. And also, if you're looking for a good group of people to play with, you know what to do. Jump on over to unhinged.gg, click the links, join Discord, hook up with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. You'll find a link to both unhinged.gg and Nash's channel where those videos are in the description below. So I hope you check it out. So with that said, let's get into it. Let's take the first question here.
Money, time, and resources aside, what element would you add to Star Citizen if you could wish it into the game?
Good question. Definitely base building in its complete form today. Everything else follows in my mind. Base building and crafting, they kind of go hand in hand. Once we have those two things in the game, it gives everything else more meaning and reason to do it, and it's just going to be like the backbone of why we play the game. And if I could have that today, I would take that today. I view station building as kind of like an added bonus, like an extension of base building. So sure, I'd take that too. Since time and money mean nothing here, but I feel like if they mean nothing, I feel like I need to ask for something even bigger. And if I was really going to go way out there, I'd probably ask for all 100 star systems. It's going to be a ton of work, but man, that would be awesome to go explore a universe that big right out the gate. Oh, and one other thing, less beams. I'm not a beam hater. I know that beams are a very reasonable way to get features into our hands faster. It's a heck of a lot easier to implement something like mining with a beam than it is a drill. For a whole lot of reasons. But gosh, I would still love to see more non-beam interactions. Like the Reclaimer Claw, if I could actually reach out and rip a ship apart and pull components into mine, I mean, man, that would be awesome. But yeah, that's what I would do. How about question 2? What's up with that one?
As much as we've seen software side of server tech improve, how has the hardware side improved? Will that be able to help CIG reach their goals with server meshing that might not even be possible 10 years ago? Also, bonus question, with Google's announcement today of a quantum computing breakthrough, could that be applied to something like Star Citizen and absolutely blow away our expectations?
Yeah, computing just keeps gaining power year after year. Moore's Law itself held up pretty firm until the 2010s. But even as the doubling of transistors has slowed down, things have kept advancing in other ways, like performance per watt, specialized performance, like think CPU versus GPU. But let's look at what changed in the past 10 years, because this is very interesting. If you look at 2014 CPUs versus 2024 CPUs, you know, clock speeds went up a little bit. The scale at which we're producing the innards of these things has gone from 22 nanometers down to 3 to 5. It's mind-boggling how small this stuff is. I mean, we're getting down to the atomic scale. We're facing real physical limitations on being able to go much smaller. All this has allowed the core count to go up dramatically. We've gone from 18 cores on some of the high-end CPUs back in 2014 to 128 or more cores today. Back in 2014, we were looking at we were working with Xeon E7s, and that was kind of like the high end. Today, we're dealing with AMD Genoas, Intel Sapphires, even ARM chips are really growing thanks to AWS's Graviton CPUs. And if you look at the cost per instruction, it has dropped dramatically. Look at the 2014 Xeon E5 as an example compared to the 2024 AMD EPYC. 14 cores to 96 cores. About 1.1 instructions per clock cycle to 2. That's almost a doubling. 2.6 gigahertz, 2.4. The clock rate actually went a little bit down, but it doesn't matter because the IPC has gone up, the cores have gone up, which takes you from 40 billion instructions per second to 461 billion instructions per second. Now, you can't see it on the screen here, but the price of that Xeon E5 was $2,700. The price of that AMD EPYC CPU, $11,000. But the cost for 1 billion instructions per second dropped, thanks to all the properties in these processors, from $67 and some change in 2014 to $23 and some change in 2024. That's like a 2/3 drop on cost per 1 billion instructions per second. That's staggering. A staggering cost reduction. And you got the same thing in all the other categories here. Hard drives, back in 2014, we were doing HDDs dominated, SSDs were just coming onto the scene. Now we're doing NVMEs, 10 to 20 times the speed of a SSD, right? 10 to 20 times the speed. Hard disk drives, we're still using them for cold storage, but they're like 50 terabytes versus the 6 terabytes back in 2014. Same story with networking. We've gone from 10 to 40 gigabit to 100 to 400, 10 times speed increase. Memory, DDR4 to DDR5, from 2100 million transfers a second to 6400, three times the speed. And the price on that memory has gone down dramatically too. Servers were capping out at a terabyte back in 2014. Now they're capping out at 2 terabytes, while the price dropped from $20 a gigabyte to $6 a gigabyte. And we got some really cool stuff emerging now, like CXL. That's like where you can have this giant pool of memory and a bunch of servers share it. We'll be excited to see where that goes. Power, same story. PUE, it's like power unit efficiency, back in 2014 was 1.7. So what that means is for every watt that you draw in the data center, you have to draw another 7/10 of a watt to offset the heat generated by that first watt. So you got a 70% overhead on power to operate your equipment back in 2014. In 2024, that's gone down to 1.1, which means only a 10% overhead on the cooling. And, that's thanks to advances in cooling. We've gone from air cooling to liquid cooling and a bunch of other stuff, but that's a dramatic drop in the overhead. All while going to sustainable energy sources, Very little sustainable energy sources back in 2014 compared to now. And then there's other things like, GPU acceleration. GPUs were not all that widely available back in 2014. They were mostly in the realm of science. Now they're available for anybody to get a fleet of GPUs. So yeah, will it help them reach their goals? Of course it will. This all helps to drive down the cost of operating the universe that we're all eager to play in. If you're asking, what's possible now, what was possible 10 years ago, it all comes down to dollars and cents. So that's why these cost reductions matter so much. It would certainly be possible to do what they're doing today, 10 years ago, if they had gotten a start 10 to 20 years before that. Now the cost would be staggering because you'd be looking at, 3 times, 5 times the cost based on just what we're seeing here to pull it off. And that not only would it be substantially more on the hardware side, but it would be staggering amount more on the software side too, because all the tooling that developers have access to orchestrate all this hardware, a lot of that didn't exist back then. A lot of the frameworks that would be used today, like none of that exists. You know, of course, that's it's completely ignoring the client side technologies too. The GPUs, the engines, like, so yeah, I mean, the advances over the past 10 years have certainly paved the way. It's not to say that it couldn't have been done before, but the cost would have been so much higher. We wouldn't have even, like, if they had the 700 million or whatever we've allocated so far back then, it wouldn't even been close to closing the gap. Like, again, this cost will continue to go down over time. Where was I? Yeah, the cost will continue to, like, ultimately, the market decides when it's the right time for technology to emerge in a lot of ways. If the market can bear the cost and someone can figure out how to turn a profit at this stuff, like, it's going to happen. And as for the bonus question on Google's announcement, I don't see that affecting Star Citizen or really anything else outside the realm of science for several decades. Maybe AI. Like, this stuff's going to be constrained to data centers for a long time. Software is going to be needed, rewritten, and optimized from the ground up. Maybe indirectly, it'll benefit Star Citizen in the not too distant future through AI. Like, if Star Citizen is able to incorporate AI into, like, content generation, and AI gets a big power spike thanks to Photon CPUs, maybe in that way Star Citizen will benefit, but that's about the extent of it. And even that I don't see anytime real soon. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Let's jump to the next question.
I came across your work recently, and I'm loving these insightful videos. Thank you for putting these
Thank you.
together. There's been a lot of drama about NPCs recently, and I wanted to get your 2 cents on the subject. I have felt like NPCs in Blades would offer frictionless multi-crew by allowing crews of players to operate together either for fun or work in response to counter NPC/Blade attacks, EMP, target disruptions, boarding, etc. Allowing ships to be balanced by the power they represent in the hands of all players who invested time/effort to acquire them, and gear/staff them. But it looks like with the recent ship balance pass, increasing player count requirements rather than balancing the ship itself, CIG are going all in on consolidating in-game power equaling the amount of players you can organize, which has understandably divided the community. Know this is a sneaky 2-parter question, but would love to hear your thoughts and compare notes.
Not sure if I caught the sneakiness there. I'm not sure what the 2-parter is, but I'm not a huge fan of AI blades or NPCs, honestly. I feel like it brings the game a little too close to pay to win. I do think it's important for the larger ships in the game to require lots of players to operate. Even if in the future they implement AI blades or NPCs, I think they should be significantly, like, behind even so-so players when it comes to performance. Like, they should trail significantly. I'd be okay with that to an extent. Like, a large number of players should be able to overcome one player if it comes down to firepower alone. If a player overcomes great odds or escapes, like, an overwhelming force, it should be due to their skill and or their ingenuity, not because a computer helped them. Not because, like, the computer AI helped them to win. That doesn't feel good to me. Now, I know, like, to your point, like, people invested in this thing, they want to be able to use this stuff. So only from that angle do I kind of sympathize and think, you know, maybe at some point down the line, like, AI blades might make sense. But again, if they ever do it, it needs to be pretty terrible. It needs to be, like, the bare minimum to operate the ship, and, like, there's no way in hell you would ever win against a fully crewed ship of human players with your AI blades. Like, it should be a total butt whooping if you were ever in that situation. So that's my opinion on the matter. So good question though. I'm glad it was asked. Thank you. Let's go to question 4.
I I get a little confused about what gets handled by the client and what is done by the game server. I think you've touched on this in one of your previous videos, but I seem to be suffering from a massive memory leak. Specifically, would it be possible for NPC behavior to be handled client-side, but also, in a general sense, who does what in a network game like Star Citizen?
Hey there. Don't worry, I think I have a memory leak too. No, NPC behavior cannot be handled by the client. Otherwise, two clients could see the same NPC doing different things. Now, some cosmetic things, absolutely. Like a server isn't going to describe the motion of an NPC's elbow to the client. It's just going to say the NPC is aiming down sights, right? And the client's going to figure out how to render that and like how the NPC's arm raises to aim down the sights. Now, it's easy to mix this up. I don't think it's a memory leak on your part because what the client does and what the server does in every game is different. They all make different trade-offs. Some games do allow the client to handle more. They give the client authority over certain things, and other games keep authority on the server for all things. Elite Dangerous, as an example, pushes a lot of things to the client. We talked about this in a previous video. But this has trade-offs too. In Elite's case, it limits how many players can play together. I think you can have like 30-ish, maybe it's as much as 60. I don't know. It's in that range. Like 30 to 60 people can be playing together in Elite Dangerous before it caps out. And that's because the client-to-client communication is a result of clients having authority. That has significant overhead. So like you can only ramp the client count up so far before that system breaks down too. Now, Star Citizen is going heavy on the server authority, which has a bunch of benefits. But just like anything else, it has trade-offs. Scale and cost are some of those trade-offs. And in this kind of game, the client will transmit what the player is doing, and it will accept from the server what is going on around it. And it will just render those things based on what the server tells it, including the player's own actions to an extent. You know, it could make some optimizations, and the client might like send a command to the server and say, hey, my client is doing this, and it might guess at what the server is going to tell it in response and start to render that, but then correct it if the server tells it something different. This is called like optimistic rendering. So even with strong server authority, you get a little bit of blurring of the lines between like what the server's doing and what the client's doing. Yeah, I hope that helps answer that question. This goes for any of the questions in this AMA. Like, if I don't quite fully answer it, drop me another comment at the bottom of this video, and we can dig into it further. Like, every question in here has been great so far, so I would love to discuss them more if I don't quite nail it. But anyway, let's head to question 5.
What would you estimate the likelihood of the Vega system being a surprise/stealth addition to 1.0?
Somewhere between 0 and 0.1%. Sorry. I think we'll be looking at how fleshed out the 5 they told us about are. If anything, you know, maybe those 5 will be richer than anticipated. But I think that's about it. The best we can hope for. Sorry. Question 6.
Can you do a video about generalized large-scale networking solutions like Spatial OS/M² Morpheus, Hadean, Metagravity Hyperscale, especially the last one? I simply do not understand how their stack works.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate the idea. I think this could be a good video, especially in the context of the games I like to talk about and how it all stacks up and compares. Not too dissimilar from one we've done earlier, but whenever we were comparing it to other games, if we could compare the games of interest on this channel to like other technologies that are emerging out there, I think that could be a really good video. So I might take that idea. Thank you. I'll try to do a TLDR on this because, you know, kind of as you're indicating like it would be a lot for this video. But TLDR, especially on the last one you asked about, metagravity hyperscale. It seems to me that what they're looking to do is productize the kind of optimizations that CIG is already making. When they talk about partitioning by causality, that's just a fancy way of talking about proximity and objects and players being close enough to impact one another. CIG already talked about exactly this in one of their ISCs just a little bit ago, during which they were discussing how they were optimizing the messaging service based on which entities could affect one another. I don't know if you remember that, but if you go back and watch, I reacted to the ISC. It was, I think it was called Meshing Forward. I'll link that in the description below too, just so you can go take a look at that again if you're curious. But I recall very vividly. I even talked about it at the end of the video, because I think at the end of that video I did some doodling to further explain some of the concepts they talked about, and I even like re-mentioned that optimization in that part of the video. So definitely check that out. So yeah, I think the metagravity hyperscale thing is much closer to what's being done in Star Citizen than, you know, the marketing pages might lead you to believe. But yeah, this was a really good question and a really good idea, and I think you might see a video like this from me that goes a lot deeper into the differences between, you know, what CIG is doing and what some of these emerging technologies are doing. So thanks again. How about question 7?
As a new player in Star Citizen, I am wondering, what is the current endgame, and what is the vision for 1.0 endgame?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but there is no current endgame. The endgame, quote unquote, currently is just mastering the loops they give us. That's it. Because everything else is a wash. Like, it's all going to vanish. All you get to keep from wipe to wipe is the skills that you pick up along the way. As an org, like, we've decided this pretty early on, like that's what we need to focus on. We just need to focus on generating skills and training up and learning these systems inside and out, because like that's the only thing that carries forward. And I'll say that joining a great org like Luminous will definitely make this more enjoyable. Wink, wink. Anyway, good question. Sorry, I don't have a better answer. Let's go to question 8.
Do you drink coffee? If so, do you add anything? Do you have snacks or food with it?
I do drink coffee, black when I make it. But I also enjoy fancy coffees made by baristas too. Like, I'm not a purist. I'm not a snob. I'm actually not picky at all. I like coffee in the raw. I like it dressed up. I'll take it anyway. But when I make it, it's just a straight black cup of coffee. I would say no on the snacks. I usually drink coffee early in the day before I'm feeling snacky. Snack is usually like a post-lunch thing for me. But I do eat eggs a lot while I drink my coffee. Like, eggs is kind of my breakfast of choice. Usually some egg whites. So yeah, in the morning, coffee and eggs. That's me. But I probably just have coffee more often than I have coffee and eggs. So good question. Thanks for the fun one. Question 8 or 9.
How much has actual server tech improved since the original Kickstarter, and how much do you see it improving by the time 1.0 launches?
Yeah, so pretty much answered this one already. If you go back to like question 2, which is to say a lot, as we talked about. As for how much it will improve, over the past 10 years, we saw, you know, as we discussed, we saw RAM, CPU triple in speed. We saw the network and disks increase by 10 to 20 times in speed. So it's safe to say that if the game ships in another 3 to 4 years, we'll probably have seen things get another 60 to 80% faster than they are today. That's like, if you just kind of average out what happened over the past 10 and take the next 3 to 4, it's probably what you'd be looking at. Which means the universe will be cheaper to operate than it is today. Like if the universe went live right now, it would cost substantially more because of this. And this is exactly the downward price pressure that I talked about in the video where we discussed the servers behind Star Citizen 1.0, where we drew out the whole kind of data center configuration and kind of made some guesses at cost and all that. Go back and check that one out if you haven't. I really had fun doing that one. Probably one of my most watched videos. But yeah, at one point in there, I talked about this downward pressure because we were talking about, cost over time, like as CIG is adding features and making more and more demands of the server over time, that would put an upward pressure on cost. But as servers got faster and faster, like we've kind of talked about in this video, like that's going to put a downward pressure on cost. And so the idea is you want to keep it steady or going slightly down over time. So yeah, good question. Let's go to question 10.
Would you ever consider sitting down with someone like Space Tomato and giving him pushback on his outlook on Star Citizen?
Great question. And surprise, I just did, as you probably saw shortly before this video dropped. Although I didn't have much in the way of pushback. It was a very fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope to do more of that stuff soon. And I just want to say thanks again to Space Tomato for having me on the show. And call me anytime. Hope to do more. Good question. Thanks. Let's go to question 11.
Is currently being tested with a 2-2 to 380 configuration, 2 solar systems, 2 servers per system, and 300 players total per mesh. Despite this being an increase over the current 100 player shards, it's still far away from what CIG has set their goal on, which is thousands of players in the same shard. After 4.0 releases and smooths out, how fastly do you think we can expect the maximum player number to grow closer to the thousands? Is it something that is easy to escalate fast once the base 4.0 is working? Also, out of curiosity, what are your favorite ships and ship manufacturers in Star Citizen currently? Stay strong.
Yes, this is something I see them expanding pretty quickly, especially relative to how quickly we've seen population per shard grow in the past. Any guess I give is going to be a wild one, but I can probably safely say that they'll double the player count within the first year. And past that, I think it'll get substantially faster. Like the rate of player growth over time will accelerate. The real challenge isn't going to be adding players to a shard, but rather bringing those players close together on that shard. That's going to be the real challenge. That's what I'll be paying close attention to. We could spend a whole video deep diving onto that and why that's challenging and like the difference in those two things, but and maybe I will. That could be fun. So yeah, good question. Hope that answers it. Again, if it doesn't fully answer the question, drop me a follow-up question in the comments below, and we can keep going async. As far as my favorite ships and ship manufacturer, my favorite ship manufacturer is Misk. That's an easy one. I love the industrial look and the vibe. Second to that would be Argo, for the same reason. But I also have a spot in my heart for Origin. I really like the premium look too. Really depends on the mood I'm in. I'm kind of either in the industrial vibe or I'm in like the premium, go for a nice ride vibe. So yeah, those are the manufacturers I got to mention. My favorite ships that are already in the game would be number 1, Freelancer Max. The Freelancer series has just been my go-to. I love them. I fly the Max the most. Probably MIS, the second most in that series. The Freelancer Miss, I guess maybe you call it. Second one I'd mention is the 400i. It's just got an amazing exterior, an amazing interior. I love the bike garage in that ship. I love the kitchen. It's kind of why I don't mention the freelancer DUR or DUR, because if I'm going to fly an exploration ship in that size, I'm going to fly the 400i. I love the Prospector because I enjoy mining, and that's like the ship. I tried solo mining at an Argo mole, but nah, not for me. I like my single-seater Prospector. When I'm out there on like the side of a moon or something mining that thing, it just feels so cool. Probably some other ships I'd like to mention. The 300i. I love that ship. Just has like a awesome little comfy interior, but it's still like really small, and I can get that thing anywhere. Like if I'm grabbing a small ship to just do a quick hop somewhere, that's usually the one I go for. That or the 135C, for the same reasons. I love that ship. Just a little bit of cargo space, but real tiny profile, but nice interior. I love those ships. And then finally, I'll mention the Argo Raft. Just an amazing interior. The exterior is really cool too and different looking. I just wish the rear kind of support station on that thing worked. At least give it a tractor beam or something. But yeah, I love the Raft. But like grabbing that over my Freelancer Max is just purely like for cosmetic reasons. Freelancer Maxes. I mean, being able to load it externally is nice without having to put the hatch down. So there's definitely probably some scenarios or situations I would go for that. As far as unreleased ships go, I'm looking forward to the Starlancer TAC, no doubt. The Starlancer Max is cool, but I just think the TAC is different enough from any other ship I own that'll hold a spot for me. Any MISC salvage ship, I keep hearing that's on the horizon. Maybe shortly after 4.0 lands. MISC and salvage, yeah, sign me up. Not a huge fan of Drake, so like the existing Drake salvage ship doesn't. I mean, whatever. But and then finally, probably the ship I'm most looking forward to at some point is the MISC Odyssey. I love the idea of a real like just all rounder. So. But I don't know enough about it to know like how often I would reach for an Odyssey. Obviously, that's going to be a multi-cruise ship, but it seems like one I would love just kind of hanging out in space with for extended periods of time. So, anyway, thanks. That was a fun question, and you stay strong too. Infinite Watermelon. Love the name. Let's look at the next one. Question 12. We're getting towards the end here.
How do you realistically stop the multiplayer plague of griefers and cheaters?
Oh man, this is purely opinion because I'm not a gaming expert, but I have been playing games a long time, and so I have an opinion on this, and I'll say real penalties. I think companies act like this is an impossible problem to solve, but I just see companies giving up before they even try in a lot of games, for the most part. But you know who's trying? Ashes of Creation. Sadly, the publicity they've gotten will probably have you believing otherwise, with the Asmongold stuff, for example, but it is a game in which you can never really unflag. You're always at risk of being killed by anyone at any time for any reason. But the number of times I've been griefed in Ashes of Creation is 0. There's real consequences in Ashes for player killing, which I think really makes people think like, is it worth it? And I'm not saying that like the systems that Ashes has implemented would work in SC. I think they probably wouldn't, but that doesn't mean another system wouldn't accomplish the same thing. I do think we can contour poor player behavior in these games. I do. I haven't given up on this. I think in the end, it'll be a mixture of in-game systems like what Ashes employs, but also a lot of human moderation. Bring back the game masters. I think people respond to fear. They do, absolutely. If you think that for one moment being a jerk could, you know, put a damper on something that you've invested a ton of time into, I think people are going to think twice. It's not going to eliminate it 100%, but if you can eliminate 99.5%, I think that's good. So I hope they take a strong stance. I hope they learn from what Ashes is doing. I hope they're paying attention. I hope all games are. I think Ashes is onto something. But I know Ashes is also committed to GMs as part of their solution long term. So I hope to see the same tough stance from CIG on this. Good question. Not one that I can say I'm super qualified to answer, but hey, it's I love to discuss it. I mean, I'm a gamer too. I'm just not a game developer. So, but if you want to dig further into that one in the comments below, I'd love to. How about lucky number 13? Question 13.
Are you happy with the proposed feature set for the minimum viable product that 1.0 would be? If you could add anything to that feature set, what would it be?
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. I think I will live in a game that implements that feature set well. Could I pick something to improve instead of add? I want so badly to remove the planetary shield minigame. Where you can like win some PvP stuff and give your base a week of invulnerability. Anybody who's watched this channel for a while probably gets sick of me talking about this, but I just think it's bullshit, and it's only going to make the game worse. I just can't see it any other way. I have yet for somebody to convince me. Like, if you disagree, jump into the comments. I'd love to continue discussing this one. But, you know, oh well. I'll deal with it if it's in there. But that's the change I would make. I would want to see that system removed. If I had to add something instead of remove something, I would add some kind of counterplay to that system. But if you pressed me even further and said, no, you got to answer the question and ignore that system entirely, then I would say more planetary gameplay. I would love to see planet-centric gameplay in abundance so that someone never has to leave a planet. Like road systems, flight between planetary locations, missions all over the planet, even like interplanetary flights. I know, like, if you go to the spaceports, they have those areas that looks like you could walk up and buy a ticket and a flight to somewhere. I would love to see those implemented, so that players who didn't want to fly, like, I would love to see people just be able to buy into the game without buying a ship, but still do a whole bunch of stuff on the planet, and eventually someday save up enough money to buy a ticket to another planet. I think that would be so cool. So yeah, if I could pick something to add, that'd be it. I would want to see time invested into planetary gameplay more. Good question. Thanks. What is the next one?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? And although this is another commentator, is pizza a pie?
Hot dog is a type of taco. Just look at it. And a taco is definitely not a sandwich. It's a taco. A taco is like its own primitive food type. However, a pizza is definitely a pie. Yeah. I think that probably answers this question firmly and leaves no room for doubt or interpretation. So we'll move on to question 16.
What do you believe to be the key elements to an MMO's long-term survival?
Creating a compelling enough world that players want to own a piece of it, whatever that takes. And really incredible combat. Everything else will follow. If you have a world that I want to be a part of, or I want to own a part of it, and I enjoy the combat, I think as long as you can sustain those two things, it'll keep going. I think we have plenty of evidence of that in the existing MMO scene. That's the long and short of it, I think. What do you think? Think I'm wrong? Or do you think there's something else? I would love to hear other people's comments on that one. Good question. I think it's one that deserves a deceptively simple answer, though. But yeah, I would love to dig into that one further below if you have other thoughts on the matter. I think this next question is our last one. Let's do it.
What would you say to people who ask the devs to play their own game? I see it a lot on Spectrum whenever the community gets annoyed at bugs, features, etc. But there seems to be little merit in devs playing the alpha and instead having them do what they are being paid for and, well, develop the game and fixing the more critical bugs, even though you don't usually bug fix in an alpha. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, unless they're doing it in their free time, like, devs don't really have time to play the game at work. No, I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so maybe there is some amount of time carved out for devs to sit there and play a game. But like, what devs are doing day to day is playing like a tiny subset of the game. I'm making some assumptions here because like I'm thinking about how I approach development and what I'm doing day to day, and I'm projecting that into this world. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be somewhere close to the mark, but they're going to be playing a tiny subset of the game. Like they're going to be pounding on one feature of the game over and over, whether that's like the character generator, like maybe they've added more hair into the thing and they're just kind of looping through. Like every time they ship some new code, you know, they're kind of firing up the generator again or the creator again, and they're playing with that, or maybe it's maybe they added a new zone to the world and like they got to keep like kind of reloading into the world, but I guarantee you like they're reloading in like right on that spot and they're doing whatever. Like they're not going to be like every time they make a change, they're not going to be like going through the character creation process and picking their home starting area and be like, okay, it's time to select my starting location again, and let's see how long it takes me to get back there. Like that. It's not going to be anything like that. That would be a huge waste of time and entirely inefficient. I'm not suggesting the devs don't play their own game. I would imagine there's a lot of really passionate devs on this project, and a lot of these devs are probably building this game because they want to play it. That's the impression I get. But that doesn't mean they have the time to play it every day, day in and day out. But I'm sure at any given time, a lot of them are playing, whether it's in the office because they've been empowered to do that, or at home in their free time. And I'm sure like all the devs are talking about it. So I'm pretty sure they're getting a lot of like feedback like internally and kind of discussing what's going on. But here's the last thing I want to say on this, and that is the devs know more than these folks that are suggesting this. You're talking about in this comment. As much as these people think they may know better, and they may very well know a lot about the thing they're talking about, but the devs have insider knowledge and knowledge about the roadmap and the direction that like we can never know. So it may not always seem like they're playing it, but I'm sure they are. And if anything, they're playing a newer version than we are. Like, I can see the devs responding to this and being like, hey, you should be playing the version I'm playing. Then you wouldn't even be asking this question, right? So anyway, that was a fun question. And if I missed anything there, again, drop me a comment. I'd love to talk further. But yeah, this whole AMA was super fun. I'm glad we finally got to do this, and you know, maybe we'll do something like this for a future milestone. You know, again, I did this to celebrate the 1,000 subscriber milestone. Again, I super appreciate everybody's willingness to hit that for me. It's not something I asked for in my videos or anything, but like again, like I said before, it is very much appreciated. And I really appreciate everybody that participated in this AMA. The content of this is thanks to you. Thanks for your questions and going out to that post and dropping a question like I had asked. That was awesome of you, and I really appreciate you for it. You know, there's some ideas in here for future videos too, which is very cool. I'm always looking for more ideas for future videos. So if you have ideas, even on any video, just drop me a comment. I constantly read all the comments coming in all the videos. So if you drop me a comment for an idea, I will find it, and I will catalog it and eventually probably do something about it. So, you know, and like I said before, if you want to dig into any of the questions in this AMA further, beyond the answers I've already given, like, let's do it in the comments below. I'm ready. I love debating, discussing, talking, as you can see in all my past videos and comments. And one last time, if you're looking for somewhere great to play Star Citizen, Ashes of Creation, PAX Day, any of the new MMOs, come find us at unhinged.gg. Jump in the Discord. You'll find me there with a bunch of other great folks. And that's it for now. Till next time. Bye, y'all.